Today we'll be looking at one more utility, that is connecting to database and then firing some queries and validating the results. So again, what I'll be doing is now how to connect to a database. Again, it's a separate API provided by your vendors like MySQL, SQL, Oracle, right? So different vendors have their own APIs to perform the JDBC connection. So APIs comes in a jar file. Let's say if we are working on MySQL, then for MySQL, it's a MySQL connector Java. So this is the dependency that you can copy and paste it into your pom.xml file. So this is what MySQL connector you're gonna get once you add this dependency. Now, in order to fire any query through database, or in order to make a JDBC connection, you need to have a database URL, the username and the password to connect with the database. Now this URL will be the database server URL, right, which will gonna have some IP colon the port, right? So IP could be like 172.68.1.1, then colon the port. By default, port is 3306 of MySQL, and then your database name through which you need to connect. Now, normally, these are the information that is actually provided by the DBA. The database server is already set up. As a manual tester or as an automation tester, it's not our task to create a database or to like, even we don't have like much access on the database where we can write something or modify something. As a tester, we majorly have select access, right? So we can fire the queries and fetch that information, right? So, but for your practice purpose, you can configure the entire thing on your own. This database server, create a database server, username, password, insert records, create tables, insert data, then validate the data, right? So for that, you need to have this database server set up. So database server, you're gonna get it from just type download. Sorry, download MySQL server. So from the very first link, go to this MySQL community server. You'll get a setup file over here. That is a MSI file. This is MySQL installer for Windows. Based on your configuration, you need to download it. Somewhere around 250 MB file it is. So once you download it, it looks like this. So MySQL installer is this. It's like a setup file. Just double click, next, it gets installed on your machine. During the installation, it will show you the port. If in case you want to change the port, you can change that as well. And then by default username, it will gonna create as a root, and the password it will gonna ask from you. So whatever password that you are giving, just remember that password, because you'll be connecting to the server using that password only. Now, once it is installed, you're gonna see MySQL in your program files over here. That is MySQL, and this is your command line interface. So basically, there are some clients as well available, like MySQL Yog, MySQL client, where you can write the queries, fetch the information, or you can do the same task using this command line tool as well. So let me increase the font size. So here it will ask you for the password that you have provided while installing MySQL server. So I've given the password as Selenium. Press enter. You are connected to the database server. Now then, you need to first create some database. So say create database I'll name it as 24th August 2019. One row affected. Then say use 24th August 2019 database change. Right now we need to like write some insert statement or create a table first and then insert some record. I believe everyone is familiar with basic SQL statements, right? So what I'll do, I'll really quick open this file and create a table. Create a table with the name Selenium. Insert, add some columns, that is tutorial ID, title, author, submission date, right? And then insert into the table and some values. So I'll just gonna copy this and paste it over here. So our table created. Now we need to add some values. So I'm gonna add the record into the table. One row affected. Now we need to fire some query. Select star from the table name Selenium, and we'll get this record. Maybe our expected data is the tutorial author. Based on the tutorial ID, I want to search. So I'll say select tutorial author from Selenium, where tutorial ID equal to 2. So I got the expected data. And this is the data that we need to validate it from the website as well. So, but before that, we need to fetch this information from the Java code. Now, how to perform JDBC connection or how to create a database connection in Java? Again, there's a utility for it. How to create database connection in Java. Basically, there is one single class called as driver manager. When you call this class is inside the jar file that we have added. So when you call this class, there's a static method called as get connection. When you call this get connection method, it will ask you for the database name, the username, and the password. Database name basically the database URL. Right? These are the three information you need to provide, and the database connection will be established. Like if I go to this link, so driver manager dot get connection and database URL will start like this: JDBC MySQL, then the local host. Since we have started it on local machine, it will be localhost. Otherwise, it will be some IP address. Let me give the context. Then your database name, like we have given 24th August 2019. Then root is the username and then the password that you need to provide. This is the line that you need to write. Before this line, you need to register a JDBC driver. That is done with class.forName, and this is the standard com.mysql.jdbc.driver. So when you write these two lines of code, your database connection will be established. Right. So what I'll do, I'll show you one utility that I've created for it, and you'll be using the same utility. A DB manager class, which I'm going to add it over here. So basically, this is a class which contains two instances of this connection. This connection is basically an interface. Like we do connection equal to driver manager dot get connection. So why I have created two instances? One I am assigning it to SQL Server, one to MySQL. So in case you want to do this on the SQL Server as well, same class and same interface is there. Same code you're going to write for SQL as well. There is no change in the coding part, right? So over here, there is a static method called as set DB connection. This will work for SQL Server. Same way, there is a method called as set MySQL DB connection. It will work for MySQL. And if you look at the code, class.forName. So class.forName and register the JDBC driver. So this JDBC driver, I have stored it inside a test config file, like we have stored the monitoring mail stuff over here. So same way, I'm storing the SQL details as well as the MySQL details. This is MySQL driver, username, password, and the URL. URL will be your database name that we have created, 24th August 2019. And this is the information we need to provide over here. Your MySQL driver, then driver manager dot get connection, URL, username, and the password. Same thing is for SQL Server. Class.forName driver, then get connection, URL, username, and the password. Right? If the connection is not closed, it means successfully connected to SQL Server. Same way, if the connection is not closed, it means successfully connected to MySQL Server. Otherwise, if connection is not established, it will throw an exception, cannot connect to the database server. So now it's a static method. You can directly call it by the class name dot the method name. So if in case you want to set up a database connection, we're going to create a new class test DB connection. And here we need to call the method DB manager dot set MySQL database connection. That's it. And add this exception. So just save this and run this, and you're going to see if everything is correct. We're going to see the message that successfully connected to MySQL server. If there is any issue, let's say I change the password of the database server, and if I run this again, if there is any issue, then we're going to get an exception, cannot connect to database server. It means our connection was established whenever all the information was provided correctly. Now, once the connection is established, the next step is to fire the query to fetch the result. So for here, there is another method called as get query. This is for SQL, and get MySQL queries for MySQL. So get MySQL query, provide the query string. So over here, say DB manager dot get MySQL query. In the query string, provide this query. Copy, paste, and print it. And when you run it, whatever details we were getting over there, same data will gonna get it over here. Now store this data into a variable. Fetch another data from the website by doing get text, store it another variable, and compare it. If both matches, test case pass, otherwise test case fail. So this sort of validation we can do with the database.